I was just a notorious job hopper. Like I would never hire myself if I looked at my resume.
Hindsight's a funny thing. Our guest today is going to talk about how his experiences at a ton of organizations when he began his career shaped how the company he now founded recruits top paid advertising talent, and also some of the findings that you, as a recruiting professional, can leverage from pay-per-click advertising in attracting top talent. Stay tuned.
Do you want to add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often, if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
As you look for more experienced people, those guys are already embedded in management positions, and they're really hard to get.
Welcome back, folks. This is your host, Sean Simmerly, with Hiring on All Cylinders. Today, we are joined by Jordan Meyer with Granular, and he's going to be walking us through a handful of topics related to marketing, recruiting, pay-per-click ad buying, and a whole slew of others. But to get it going, let's just say hi to Jordan. Jordan, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So remind us all where you're located, Jordan.
Yeah, I am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're in the third ward, which is kind of a offshoot of downtown. Think of the lower brick buildings, the brownstone walk-ups, the trendier part of downtown that isn't all skyscrapers and taxi cabs.
Nice. Yeah, that kind of ubiquitous green-blue glass of the new skyscrapers, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Also, I don't quite understand why every trendy neighborhood seems to have exposed brick. I don't quite understand how that's just universal.
Yeah, I mean the hate for drywall and clean walls in the advertising space is pretty spectacular.
Yeah. Well, Jordan, the reason why we're talking today is, one, you have helped your organization, Granular, really build a phenomenal culture, largely through your hiring process. So definitely want to touch on that, but also wanted to try to tap into some of your expertise as it comes to, or as it relates to marketing, and see if we can't possibly leverage some of those, areas of expertise for our recruiting fan base or recruiting listener base here on our podcast. So I would love maybe if we could just start with what Granular is and what your organization does.
Yeah, so Granular is a digital marketing agency specifically focused on paid digital marketing. So I like to say there's a lot more that we don't do than we actually do as a service. And, that came from me working at other agencies that are more full service based, and then working in-house for some large companies. And I got exposure to a lot of different agencies, and everyone was kind of offering up paid search and paid digital, but they'd have like one guy that did it and maybe a team around him or her. And I saw just a lack of passion, a lack of understanding, and it truly was my passion and still is to this day. And I just didn't understand why there wasn't an agency solely focused on this. So that's why I started it, and that's why we exist, and that's what we still do to this day.
For sure. And what does that kind of, consulting as an agency specifically related to paid search advertising, what does that look like for your clients and for, for what you guys do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I guess what it looks like is, we can drop in as a consultancy to help get someone unstuck if they're, running up against ROI problems with, they're putting $1 into AdWords, they're only getting $1 out. If they want to get, $4 back for every $1 in, that's kind of when they hire us. Other times it's to check in on their in-house team and help beef them up a little bit. We can train them. We can consult with them to show them some kind of tricks to the trade of more experienced folks on my team and how we would handle that. But a lot of times it looks like a small or medium-sized business who's trying to drive qualified traffic to their website to make something happen.
Absolutely. You know, there is a theme that we oftentimes come back to here on the podcast, which are the similarities between sales and recruiting, and marketing and recruiting. So, you know, you're talking about $1 into Google Ads, $1 out, and the potential ROI conversations that come up when you're talking to your clients. Recruiting has a very similar possible use case for paid advertising. So curious, has Granular ever helped, or have you seen in your experience focus on paid advertising as it relates to recruiting and getting people in the door to possibly apply or become candidates?
Yeah, we actually have. We haven't done it for ourselves because we're still pretty small, and we kind of curate our own recruiting targeting list by hand. But we've been retained by larger companies who have either a lot of openings or they have very specialized openings, and we've run ads on Twitter, Google, LinkedIn to really get in front of top candidates that they want to talk to, and drive recruiting. And it's worked really well. People have been really happy with it. We've done this across the world. I think one of the more interesting ones was recruiting an electrical engineer in Slovakia. That's something that we didn't wake up in the morning and think we were going to do until our client asked us to do that for them. And we executed it. I think maybe a more relatable thing would just be, we would run display or retargeting ads for people that are in the same town as this company. I'm thinking kind of a conduit of a similar size agency. We want to put out our culture, so pictures of our team having fun, maybe some benefits, maybe just saying that you have a well-paying job and you have a position open, and really just creating some brand awareness around the community through digital display ads, and we've seen that work as well.
So, if people are using paid advertising to try to get people to apply, what are some of the mistakes that you've seen that people make when advertising from a recruiting perspective, whether that's explicit, like apply now, or more brand, like this is our team having fun, like you alluded to?
I think the cardinal sin in the web in general, but definitely recruiting, is just using stock photography. You want to hire somebody that wants to work for your company. You should show them what your company looks like. Unless you're hiring for, iStock photo and you literally are in the business of stock photography, I don't think you should be using stock photography. It's easy enough to take a picture with your iPhone or your Android, or I'm sure someone in the office has a DSLR you could borrow and ask nicely to use. Just use that in your ads and on your landing page. It's that easy. I think that's just a huge turnoff for potential employees to see that, this culture, maybe they write about it in a fun way, but geez, it looks stock, it looks stale, it looks boring. So that's like number one tip is don't use stock photography. I'd say number two is just be really targeted. Actually talk about the job that you're advertising for. Don't just send them to a general search page that has all of your openings. I've seen that way too often. Unfortunately, I think it's a technology issue a lot of times. They can't link to a specific job. They have to kind of higher level link to the job search page, which then is cumbersome and, asks the user to select what country or city they're looking for, what type of position. You can have engineering next to art directors, next to janitors on the same page. And that's just another kind of turn off for a potential employee. I mean, if you're advertising to them, they click on an ad that's relevant to what they're looking for. You don't want to make them then do work to find that job opening.
And yet that's just the standard practice right now.
Yeah, it really is. It's out there. It's kind of everywhere. Big and small folks are doing it like that.
Yeah. And, I suppose one of the reasons might be just the familiarity that people have with tracking and attribution, right? So I think your comment about having people go to that one generic jobs landing page, it might be because the people that are running kind of recruiting or recruiting ops don't have the familiarity that someone doing that for marketing operations or demand generation might be able to, deal with when they understand or see, okay, this is what I need to track as far as UTM parameters or whatever it might be. A recruiting ops person might not have that familiarity.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. I wonder then, what is there a way for, recruiting teams to either think about installing someone to handle this kind of work, or should more recruiting organizations be contracting out with agencies like Granular and others to really make sure that they're tracking this effectively?
I think it all comes down to economics, right? A full-time employee to do this is very difficult from a payroll standpoint. If you're really just looking for one person to be the expert at digital marketing on your team, they're going to be on an island. They're not going to have super high job satisfaction. And they're not going to grow as quickly as they could with a team of like-minded folks. So with someone like us, I think we could be a little more affordable, more agile. If it doesn't work, and it doesn't always work, if it doesn't work, you can stop paying us. If it doesn't work after you've spent 3 months going through applicants, hiring, onboarding someone internally, you can't just fire them. Like, you need just cause for that. You need to go through a whole long process, and then you also feel terrible about impacting someone's life like that. So I think an agency is a good way to prove if it works, to save some money, to do this rapidly. We're and many agencies like us are super fast at spinning up campaigns, making sure that it's all measurable, not making mistakes. Something we do here is really only hire senior level people. So we're not doing this for the first time or the second time. We're doing this for the 12th time and 100th time. So that's I would just say there's a lot more risk with trying to hire somebody internally to do this, especially if you're not a huge global company. But if you are, even at that point, sometimes it doesn't make sense to hire for this position internally.
So let's dig in a little bit more there. So you said you only hire senior people. Talk to me a little bit about why that is, the pitfalls that are associated with that. We know that unemployment is at the lowest it's been, I want to say, period. So how are you able then to compete in a ridiculously tight talent market with the express understanding that you can't go out and find someone and help train them that might be a little bit more junior in their profession?
Yeah, it is so hard. It was hard, 5 years ago when I started this company, but it's only gotten more difficult from then. So I only hire senior people because I've seen what hiring juniors and interns does to a company if they're running advertising for them. Not to say that those jobs shouldn't exist. I wouldn't be here if someone didn't hire me before I was ready for the job. It's just part of coming up through the industry. Like, you have to have a job to get hands-on training with paid search and actually learn this business. There's no real good coursework to learn it, and it's a very practical experience. You have to actually do it. But with that, I mean, when I was from my personal experience as an agency worker, I was managing accounts that were probably too big and too important. I should have had senior people over me helping me, but that was really never the case. And I probably made some mistakes back then. I was good, but everyone can always be better. So just from that experience, I know that interns and juniors probably aren't able to just manage ad accounts on their own, or they shouldn't. They're going to make mistakes. They're going to spend billable time learning how to do this stuff. But it was really when I was in-house. I worked at Best Buy Corporate, managing paid search for them. And then I worked at 2 universities, heading up digital marketing departments for them. And I saw through our interaction with agencies and vetting agencies and sometimes using them, kind of hiring and firing agencies. I just saw that, they would bring the ringer to the table. They'd bring the sales guy or the super experienced paid search person. And then behind them, behind the scenes, they would have juniors and interns kind of filling their desks. And the quality of return and the quality of work really drops off rapidly when that happens. And when I started Granular, it was under the mantra that we would not do that to clients. We would never use their real money to learn and experiment and test and train. I just fundamentally disagreed with that. So that's why we only hire senior level people. The people I hire have, cross vertical experience. A lot of them have worked in-house, so they know how that kind of hierarchy and red tape works. They know, that the grass isn't greener at other agencies, and they've just got a ton of experience with paid digital, and it really makes us super efficient, and it makes us really effective too. So there's a lot that comes with that, but a big thing that you mentioned that comes with that is a lack of options out there, a lack of talent. As you go up the chain and look for more experienced people, those guys are already embedded in management positions, or they're on the ladder climbing up the ranks at an agency or in-house, and they're really hard to get. And if someone is unemployed in this field, that's typically not a good sign either, because I've seen really unqualified people say that they know paid search and they get hired because they put it on their resume. Like, everyone wants people from my team. Everyone wants a paid search professional. There is a huge fight for talent right now, and we're doing our best to retain and grow, my employees here. But it is a challenge. It's a really brutal market out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, there is a ton to unpack there, Jordan. I mean, you're talking about, the grass is not always greener, and yet at the same time, it sounds like you might have to convince people that the grass is possibly greener. So what is that dichotomy like when you're talking to people that are experienced and maybe not unemployed to say, hey, you should come join, but then be content?
I know. It's such a challenge. And yeah, there's a ton to unpack from what I just rambled on with. So I can talk to potential employees and convince them to come over because I've probably lived that life. I was just a notorious job hopper. Like, I would never hire myself if I looked at my resume. But with that, I got to experience a ton of companies. I got to experience multiple agencies, multiple in-house jobs. I was freelancing, I was doing everything, and I've experienced a lot of different cultures. And with that, I can kind of pinpoint the pain, the bad parts of someone's current job. So if I'm talking to someone at a big agency, I can talk about the red tape. I can talk about the endless meetings. I can talk about the lack of diverse clientele that they're working on. They're probably only working on one account day in and day out. And if that agency loses that account, they probably lose their job. I've got people on my team who've experienced that. And if they're in-house, same kind of thing. Like, all right, how many hours a week are you actually doing the work that you like? If you're truly passionate about paid search, you're probably spending half your time at least in meetings. You're spending another 0.25% explaining why paid search matters to your company. You're basically selling your own job. And then, maybe at 25%, you're actually getting to do the work that you love. There's downfalls to everything. Look, agencies aren't perfect. It's definitely not for everyone. It's kind of rapid fire. There's tight deadlines. But on the flip side, we do not have long hours here. We keep it really we try to keep it really stress free. We try to hire clients that are not jerks. which
Always a
is,
good goal. Yeah.
pretty hard, but it's a good goal to have. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be something that entices people to leave. We've got good retention here. We don't have perfect retention. People, luckily for me, I feel good about where people have gone. They've gone on to start their own businesses. They've gone on to run family businesses. I haven't lost anyone to another agency. I haven't lost anyone to a big corporate job. And that makes me feel good. I always hate losing, a talented employee that I truly like and enjoy spending time with. And in this economy, though, it's so hard, and especially with a younger workforce, which, I think all of my employees are under 40. We're just bigger risk takers, and with such a strong economy, you can take a risk, and if you stumble, you're not going to fall on your face. By the time you look back up, you're sitting at another desk with another job offer. So it's a really hard time for an employer to get the best talent and retain it. But we're trying our best here with the culture and with what we have to offer.
Yeah, 100%. So I want to kind of take it full circle and bring it back to the beginning of this conversation and talk a little about what it's like to recruit in Milwaukee. So obviously we're based here in San Francisco. We have offices in New York as well, and we know what the recruiting dynamics are like in a major metropolis, let alone a vibrant city, but not one of those center metropolises. Your probably closest, biggest, or closest, largest metropolis would be like Chicago. I'm kind of curious, What is it like recruiting just adjacent to one of those major cities, and how can you compete with some of their benefits, with some of the prestige, all of that jazz?
Yeah, it's really interesting when you break it down by geography. I was actually out in San Francisco last week, so I should have stopped by to say hi.
Yeah.
We were out there for the Google Marketing Live conference and got to speak to a few technology providers who were definitely ranting about retaining and recruiting engineering talent out there. It sounds like a whole other world. Here, I think what we have going for us really helps attract and retain good, talented people in the city of Milwaukee. We're small, like we're about 1 million people. Chicago is much larger than us. Anything on the coast is larger, but I think where we're losing individuals is typically like a Denver or an Austin. It's still relatively approachable. It's hip. It's trendy. It's a little bigger than we are.
A lot of exposed brick.
Yeah, lots of exposed brick, good coffee, all those important things. But Milwaukee's unique. And look, everyone says that about every city that they live in. But I actually spent a lot of time in Chicago. I lived in Minneapolis, which is a great city. And I came back when I started Granular to Milwaukee because I knew we have a couple things that are really going for us. We have really affordable housing, great location. We're on Lake Michigan. I mean, we have the same exact view as Chicago does to Lake Michigan. We have the same shoreline. And transportation is so easy here. Anyone that visits will just have their mind blown by how fast you can get across town. And that's not because people aren't here. That's just because it works out well. There's a lot of ways to get to each destination. And it's not really congested at all. People laugh at our traffic jams if they're from the coast or from SF or anywhere that's not here. So I think we've got a few things going for us. From a pay standpoint, I knew that it was way more affordable to operate a business here just because pay is behind the larger cities. But the thing is, it's not it's weird. It's someone would gladly make less here than go to Chicago and make 30% more, which they legitimately could. But they would have to pay 30 to 40% more for housing. They would have to deal with a commute that is double the time and they wouldn't get the same kind of more laid back lifestyle that Milwaukee has to offer. We're still a legit city, but the fact is it is more laid back. It's more personal. If you're in the agency space here, I mean, everyone says it's small walkie. Everyone just kind of bounces around agencies. Everyone knows each other. It's not like we're lending someone a cup of sugar, but we're certainly swapping employees every now and then. We've all worked with the big companies in town. Everyone's got a story to share, and everyone knows somebody. And it's really kind of just hospitable. It's a good culture here in the city. So I think if someone's living here, it's not super hard to convince them to stay here and take a good job.
So now we've kind of covered you attracting talent, whether that be through, pay-per-click advertising or through alluring someone from a larger city and talking about small walkie and the pace of life. We've, kind of covered that beginning. I have also heard that your interview process at Granular is a little bit loose, I guess. Can you talk to me a bit about what that is and why that is and how it works for you?
It is loose. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that kind of sets the standard for the culture here. I'm pretty laid back. I think I have really high standards and I'm a bit of a perfectionist, but I'm very laid back and low pressure as a boss, and that's reflected from the first time that I meet potential employees. It's unstructured. Typically, I'd say almost always we start with a coffee or a beer, and I just get to know people. And I'm able to do that because we get ahead of our hiring needs. We basically build a bench full of potential recruits here, and we do that throughout the year, even if we're not hiring. If we don't have a spot open, for a number of months, we'll still take meetings with talented individuals around town or around the country, and try to grab coffee, try to grab a beer, lunch, or try to just have a Skype or a Zoom call with them and get to know them. And we legitimately want to get to know them because we're still a relatively small company, and anyone that we add to the team impacts our culture. And I think culture is so important to nail off the start that I want to have a casual conversation before I have a more detailed skills-based interview. So I think that's the loose kind of style that we have. Is the first interview isn't really an interview, even though it could definitely fall into that category, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So it sounds just like the stock photos. You have to be targeted. You have to be able to show that your culture is, you practice what you preach. And so if you start your interview process with a cup of coffee or a beer, it represents the fact that, you are who you are. You're not just some smiling person shaking some other smiling business person's hand in a stock photo. Perfect. Well, awesome. Jordan, if folks want to learn more about Granular, maybe learn about some pay-per-click recommendations or tips, or maybe look to employ your services, where could they go to learn a little bit more?
Yeah. Go to granularmarketing.com. Find us on Instagram. We kind of showcase and highlight our culture there, or Twitter. But yeah, if you visit our website, granularmarketing.com, you'll get a really good idea of who we are and how we operate.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Jordan. Really appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully we can keep in touch.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. It's been fun.